Robert Friedland, I think, coined it nicely at the BMO conference. Nickel is the new gasoline. In terms of an EV economy, nickel is the primary metal in the cathode of that battery, and that's on top of robust nickel demand growth. It grows at 4 or 5% a year. So you go 2025 to 2030. You're looking by 2030, we need 2 million tons more nickel per year in a market that only generates 2.4 million tons of supply today.
Hi guys, bit of an exclusive. Following up from the press release we saw yesterday from Canada Nickel, we got a phone call from Mark Selby to tell us all about it. But before we listen to that, would you mind clicking the button in the corner of the screen to subscribe to our YouTube channel and the notification bell to see more videos like this? So let's hear what Mark had to say. Hi Mark, how are you?
Good to catch up again, Matt. How are you?
Yeah, it's been a while, but we saw the press release earlier this week and we're delighted to get your phone call this morning. So, what's going on?
Yeah, no, I'm very, very excited. This is a new Canada Nickel. We announced the launch of it yesterday. I've been in the nickel business nearly 20 years between Inco and my time at RNC, and during that time, spent a lot of time looking at nickel opportunities around the world. And to be honest, this is I'm most excited about. It's at the right stage. It's an early exploration play, but given our experience at Dumont and unlocking the value at that asset, there's a lot of parallels for this new project, and we can take all the learning that we had at Dumont to unlock the value, at the Crawford Nickel project.
Okay, so if you don't mind if I ask, I do want to get onto the structure of this because there's a lot of moving parts. But before I do, obviously, you were at RNC, where the Dumont asset resides. You left. I mean, what happened there?
Yeah, no, it was the right time for me to step away. I needed to deal with some personal issues at that time.
Right.
And then over the course of the summer, I was approached by the investor group that's one of the parties in the transaction, who felt they had a very Dumont-like opportunity and thought my experience with RNC and Dumont would make me the ideal candidate, to be able to drive this forward.
Okay. I appreciate that. And sorry, I didn't mean to, pry, but can we talk about the structure here? Because like I say, we've got Spruce Ridge involved, we've got Noble Minerals involved, and you've got this new vehicle, Canada Nickel. Can you tell us how that looks?
Sure. Yeah, no, on paper, I'm sure if you read through the release, it looks like a fairly complicated transaction.
Yep.
And there's 3 different parties that we needed to sort of bring together.
Right.
But one of the things I'm excited about, in addition to the potential of the project itself, is just that, we're going to put it out in the right corporate structure. So, at the end of the day, Canada Nickel is going to be dividended out of Noble. It'll be a clean, brand new company. We'll have 50 million shares outstanding after the financing, and I'll be putting together a new management team and new board to drive it forward. So, when we joined RNC, it was already a company that had been in existence for 3 years, and we had to deal with legacy shareholders and legacy structure and so forth. So, I'm really excited about taking, what I think is, the best opportunity I've seen, and have it, the ability to create value for shareholders and the structure, that's designed, specifically to do that.
Okay, so you got a nice clean structure. You've also announced a private placement of circa $5 million. Where are you in that process?
Yeah, it's fully subscribed. It's a friends and family round at this point in time. So, if anything, we'll be cutting people back a bit, given the interest. Again, there's really very few ways to play nickel, and so those people who've got the nickel story are keen to get some exposure to this asset.
Well, yeah. Let's come on to the nickel market in a minute here. Sure. But so what's $5 million going to allow you to do, and over what time frame?
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing with this is this is a very large structure, large geophysical anomaly that we've outlined. And the nice thing with a big bulk deposit is you can very quickly, without a lot of drilling, define a fairly substantial resource very quickly. So this will allow us to do sort of that first stage of drilling to really have a proof of concept, around how big is this resource, what the potential of this resource could look like, and to do the mineralogy work to understand, to make sure there's recoverable minerals there. They've already done some initial work, which was attractive to me to say, hey, this does look like Dumont in terms of, the minerals that are there, the ability to recover them, the type of minerals that can be recovered, seem to be there. So, Again, it's early days, but it's very, very compelling, and that fundraise will allow us to get through that stage one without having to go back.
Okay, fine. And I guess my next question is around what is the business model, and I that probably goes neatly into maybe your perception of what's happening in the nickel market, because for most people, I think you alluded to it earlier, outside of Australia, there haven't been too many options for people to get involved in nickel. So what's the business plan, and how are you going to deliver it?
The go-forward strategy here is, Crawford itself has, tremendous exploration potential. We want to unlock that value for shareholders. Obviously, the team we'll build will be, I hope, the leading nickel sulphide team in the space. And there's a couple of other opportunities we have our eye on that will build, the portfolio of assets that we think will be the go-to nickel sulphide investment play in the market.
Well, that's interesting to me. So what you're saying is that there's potentially you're looking at roll-up acquisitions, M&A activities, part of what you're trying to do here. That's the business plan?
Not a long list. No. Focus is Crawford,
right?
But we'll pick up another one or two assets. Because again, I think we're in inning one of what is going to be a good 5 to 7 year nickel bull run.
Right.
I think for your listeners, there really have been, and you alluded to this, there's been very few ways to invest in nickel outside the ASX, over the last 10 years. So I think a lot of investors have forgotten, names like, Diamond Fields, Lionor, FNX, Jubilee Mines, Dynatech, that, in the 90s you had Diamond Fields taken out as a new nickel discovery. You had, the FNX, Jubilee, Lionor all get taken out as development stories through the last cycle in the mid 2000s, between $1 billion and $3 billion. So, unlike copper and gold, where there's literally dozens, if not hundreds of ways to play those particular metals, in every cycle, there's really ever only a handful of real projects to get exposure to. And so, because of that, those projects then tend to command, pretty, premium valuations in the marketplace. And we, while we're in inning one, I want to make sure we're positioned with, a couple of the best assets, just a couple of the best assets going forward.
So a lot of those things are dependent on timing, finance, and what the commodity price is doing. Clearly, okay, nothing new there.
Sure.
But, so your view on the nickel market is what in terms of where you're coming in?
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I think too many investors get caught up and think that prices are just going to go up in a straight line. That never happens. And again, for investors today, I think we will see a rollover in nickel prices by year end. With the big spike in nickel prices, we'll see a slug of scrap come into the market, and a slug of NPI come into the market, which is we're gonna have to chew through, over 6 months. Okay, but within another 6 months to a year, we'll be sort of back on our way up again. And the reality is Robert Friedland, I think, coined it nicely at the BMO conference. Nickel is the new gasoline. In terms of an EV economy, nickel is the primary metal in the cathode of that battery, and that's on top of robust nickel demand growth. It grows at 4 or 5% a year. So you go 2025 to 2030, you're looking by 2030, we need 2 million tons more nickel per year in a market that only generates 2.4 million tons of supply today. Okay. And there's literally almost no projects in the pipeline today.
So that's fascinating. So you're saying come the end of this year, some prices will spike, a bit more scrap in the marketplace, equities.
And the prices will roll over.
Yeah. So do you think what's that going to do?
The prices will roll over.
What's that going to do for equities, nickel equities?
I mean, again, I think I would, again, I think that may have a little bit of a dampening for new people to get into the story. But again, if you look at nickel, again, it goes through these cycles, and at the end of 2005, nickel prices had rolled over off of a peak, and they bottomed at about $11,000 a ton. 16 months later, they were at $54,000 a ton. Yeah. So it was a 5x run in 16 months. That's the kind of explosive moves that nickel can have. Nickel's the best performing base metal this year, by a wide margin. And so, again, I would say if there's any weakness in the nickel prices, use that as an opportunity to position yourself in these names. Because again, if you look back at nickel's history, you see in the late 60s, we got to $8 a pound in 1968, which would be like $50 a pound today. We had a big spike in nickel prices in the late 80s. We had another big spike in nickel prices in the mid 2000s. So every 15 to 20 years, you tend to get this super cycle in nickel. And so again, I think, I don't know when it's going to come, but 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years from now, as the EV demand, comes roaring in on top of already strong stainless steel demand, I think we're going to see some, pretty exciting nickel markets come in the middle of the next decade.
Which could be interesting for you guys. You should be getting into production about then, shouldn't you?
Well, we'll see. We'll be able to. I mean, the nice thing is because we spent 10 years and $100 million advancing Dumont, we can take all of that learning and apply it to what we've got at Crawford.
Is there that much of a parallel? I mean, is the geology the same? Are the rocks the same?
Yeah, both of them are serpentinite. To get technical, they're both serpentinized dunites that contain 3 different nickel minerals of varying proportions. And the scale of the resource. So if you look at the geophysical anomaly that's Dumont, and you look at where Crawford is, one of the big findings for us is we did a pile of very complicated mineralogy, metallurgy work to understand how to solve that puzzle for Dumont. But by the end, we realized the geophysics that you do on day one kind of give you 70 to 80% of the answer. So I can look at Crawford today and get a pretty good feel for how this may play out. Again, still 4 holes in it, so early days, but the scale of the potential is clearly demonstrated by the scale of that anomaly, which in total dimensions is is bigger than what we had at Dumont.
Okay, so could I ask what's next? So you're fully subscribed with your private placement.
Yeah,
it's great. How would investors wanting to look at this story get involved?
Yeah, so as of right now, if you haven't let me know and I haven't talked to you, because the placement is fully subscribed, both Noble and Spruce Ridge, as part of the transaction, will be getting Canada Nickel shares, and Noble will be dividending out 10 of the 12 million shares to their shareholders.
Right.
So between now and when it will publicly trade later this year, the only way to get access to it is to buy the shares of either Noble or Spruce Ridge. The other thing that's exciting about this opportunity in general, one, I talked earlier about, the structure and how it's a nice tight structure. 2, just the potential of the deposit itself. And then 3, getting in at the right valuation point. The pro forma market cap, including the financing, is $12 million. And we'll have, a nice chunk of change in the bank with that $12 million market cap. So again, if you look at peers in the marketplace today, they're trading anywhere from, $20 million to $180 million. And again, long run, if you've seen what happens to new nickel discoveries in prior cycles, they've exited it out at billion plus valuation. So again, still very early days here, and we'll see how everything unfolds. But again, that's really the upside potential here in terms of getting into a nickel story, in an in-one at a valuation that's an in-one valuation.
Okay, and then with regards to the Canada Nickel itself, I guess you're starting to tell that story. You get the private placement closed off, I presume, and then you can start telling that story in the market once you've got the team on board. Yeah.
And one of the advantages of structuring everything this way is that we can talk about the story from day one and see that value reflected in the Noble and Spruce Ridge share prices. Fundamentally, it's just outside of Timmins. You're in an established mining camp. I've talked about the scale of the resource already. You're sitting next to a highway and all the infrastructure in place, very similar to Dumont. So, and you're in a jurisdiction where you can actually permit a mine. So, if you look at, Crawford versus, the other handful of nickel opportunities that are out there, that might be in a remote location, that might be in a place that's challenging to permit, that might not really have the scale to support a very large scale operation. Crawford, ticks a lot of boxes. And again, that's why I was so excited about the opportunity about it last summer.
Well, Mark, that's fantastic. We're glad to see you back, and I'm glad all is well, and you're back doing what you love best, which is nickel, and bring a great story to market. Can you do stay in touch? Thanks for the phone call. I really appreciate it, and let us know how things progress.
Yeah, no, thanks, Matt. The drills are turning right now, so we're going to have a pretty steady news flow. So hopefully we'll have regular updates over the next couple of months.
Wonderful. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks very much for watching. We hope you enjoyed that. And if you did, please click the button in the corner of the screen to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also catch us on our website, cruxinvestor.com, and Cruxcast, our podcast series. Plus, most days you can catch us on LinkedIn and Twitter. We'd love getting your feedback, so please keep that coming, and we'll speak to you again soon.